Welcome to the Shaman Vision Podcast. I got a great guest with me, another great guest. He's a musician, he's a thinker, and he's all around a pretty solid dude. Tom, what's going on, Tom?
Thanks. Well, I don't know. I don't do podcasts very often, so it's a very strange thing.
Yeah.
Almost any time that I talk or play music or do anything and I have knowledge of it being observed or recorded, it immediately becomes like I'm watching myself.
Definitely.
And so I become an actor. Like I'm not in my own skin anymore. You know,
well,
I'm
it's
directing.
It's kind of like the observer effect. We've had this kind of conversation before. When particles are being observed, they behave differently, and I think it's very true. Yeah, it's true. When you know people are watching, you have to tighten up. You have to, try to make sure you're getting your points across and you're coming across the way you want, which never happens.
Well, I always feel like there's a certain element, like, okay, I do a lot of improv, music type stuff. And anytime you're doing improv, there's not that pressure. It's usually not being recorded, so you feel free to make mistakes and go out there, and as soon as you introduce over and over again, people have always said, oh, I'm going to record this. I'm like, don't tell me you're going to record it. Just record it.
Yeah,
you can record me anytime. Just don't tell me you're going to record it.
Just don't tell me. Yeah, I know. I agree, man. But knowing you record is a weird feeling.
It is. A friend of mine records a lot of conversations. And I told him a long time ago, I said, don't ask me, just start recording.
What do you mean he records your conversations? Like phone conversations or what?
Oh,
and what is he using it for? Is it for...
He's a weirdo.
Is he creating a profile?
I don't know. Someday I might have to hire hitmen to go get him someday if I ever run for office.
Yeah, that would make me feel uncomfortable if I knew somebody was recording all my conversations with them for no reason.
No, he would take basically all your conversations and conversations you'd had with other people, and they all knew, and it was usually drunk after bar stuff. So you'd go over to his house and you'd sit around and play music and talk, and it started out just being him recording jams. He was recording us playing drunken jams or whatever, and it kind of evolved into just getting conversations, and then he would cut these conversations up and send them to me sometimes. And he's like, here, listen to this. And it always would be the most incriminating crap. Almost like, I always thought, you're threatening me. This is
right.
This
is blackmail or something. You know Derek, Derek Do, right?
Oh yeah, I know Derek.
Right. So we were hanging out one time and we were messing with music and we were just like kicking it. And he started recording the conversation while he was like playing drums and like doing a whole bunch of weird shit. And then he ended up, and I knew he was recording, and he ended up like putting the which we were having a super deep conversation, and he ended up putting that on top of like the music he was making and making like a short little like a little track out of it, like a weird collage track, and it actually turned out pretty cool. But man, let's get back to let's dive into it, man. This is a wild year so far, right? A wild 2020.
I don't know. I mean, it is.
It is.
I think we thought it was going to be. People joked about it. They said it was going to be, because the 20s, that's when everything, it's almost, I don't believe this, but it almost feels like it's cyclic, 1920s, you had stock market crap going on later, you had, I guess that wasn't yet, but
well, dude, I did always have a feeling. I always had a feeling probably since like 2000, and people could, say I'm bullshitting or whatever. I don't care. I had a feeling since like 2012 that 2020 and 2023 were going to be big years. And, in hindsight, that doesn't sound like, oh man, you're such a predictor. I mean, the year 2020 sounds pretty provocative. It just does.
It does.
But
it's a futuristic age.
It is, for sure. And it's living up to the hype. 2020 is living up to the hype. This is a hell of a year so far.
No, 2020 is such a neat round number. Of course, everybody was like, oh, hindsight 2020,
2020 vision.
Then there's the pandemic. The 1920 pandemic. You're like, oh, we're due. It's going to be another one of those, And I think there's definitely a psychological component to numbers. Even though a person that's very rational can sit and say, numerology and these types of things there's no real effect. But
right.
Well, there is. At a minimum, it's the placebo effect,
Right.
At a minimum, it's somebody hearing a number and thinking that it means something to them, so they behave differently because of it. It's like with astrology. How much is how much astrology is self-fulfilling, you know? Oh, I'm an Aquarius. I'm supposed to act like this, you know? And so, oh, that's funny. I fit all these things, you know? I don't believe very much in astrology anymore, but my wife is a Gemini, and I specifically, you know, I'm full of shit. I didn't completely look for just a Gemini, but that was one of the things. I'm like, oh, a Gemini, that fits.
You're compatible.
Aquarius,
Yeah,
you know,
yep.
yeah, we're, you know.
Are you really an Aquarius, man?
Yeah.
So
January 27th.
And guess what? Yeah, January 22nd. But yeah, we know we got around the same birthday.
Yeah.
My daughter's a Gemini.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. So you guys get along.
Yeah, we get along great. And it's funny though, because I used to be deeper into astrology, and I still think it exists in some realm, and we can break that down at some point, but it exists even if it's placebo. People have believed in it so long that it just has like this
it has some effect.
Momentum, man. Almost has like momentum in human DNA or human history, right? But my daughter is like the stereotypical Gemini, man. I swear, like you could read her straight out of a book or whatever, man. She is creative. She's communicative. You know, she can communicate really well, and she is an absolute angel. She can be the sweetest person on earth at times, right? But
right.
When she gets mad and when she's not getting her way and when she gets tired, it is a complete flip. A flip on a dime of the complete opposite of that. You know what I mean? There's definitely two sides of her personality. And the funny part is there's not much of a middle ground. You don't catch her on days where it's like she's just chilling and it's not like too dramatic one way or the other. It's you're getting one or the other. So yeah.
My wife is like that a little bit, definitely. So, but you see, that's it. We have this somewhat whimsical belief in it, yet I don't believe it wholeheartedly. I wouldn't put money on it. Well, maybe a little bit of money, but I don't know. You know, it just depends. It's not one of those things. If they come out and say, "Oh, there's absolutely nothing to it," I'll be like, "Yeah, that's kind of what I thought too." But if one day somebody proves that there is a real effect, you know, I won't be surprised either. I'll be like, "Yeah, I thought maybe." You know, there's something there, but I don't know. You know, Carl Jung did a study on the horoscopes, and he caught a lot of shit from it because he didn't use the correct procedures exactly. So a lot of people didn't accept it as a legit study, but he showed better than 50-50, essentially higher than statistical chance that these horoscopes that they'd made for these couples, I can't remember, I'm going to make up numbers, 50 couples that he followed over the course of 4 or 5 years and had their horoscopes done and then tried to match it to their lives. And in as much an unbiased way he could, he measured that, and it was higher than what he thought the statistical, I can't think what the word is, than it should be, you know?
Well, it makes you think, because like there's horoscopes you read in the paper and there's horoscopes you read online, and then there's real like horoscopes where people are looking at the exact time you were born and where the sun was exactly and where the moon was exactly and where the planets were exactly. And that, I never got too deep into that. I've had conversations with people that got deep into it and that are really into it. And I'm thinking, you know what, once you start putting that much science behind it, there might be, I mean, you know, not science, literal science, but like just thought behind it. There might be something more there. I don't know. The thing that fascinates me about astrology is like what I said earlier, is that it's been around so long. It was like basically one of the first manifestations of like religion, when people start putting 2 and 2 with like the sun rising and falling and the seasons and where the stars are placed and the whole zodiac. The zodiac is super old, man. And people, that's a thing humans kind of have carried on for a long time.
We have a hard time comprehending how important it was to them. But I mean, right now, I'm sitting here with light. We're looking at things. We're lit up. But if it was 1,000 years ago, I mean, hell, if it was a couple 100 years ago, it was just dark. You know, what did you do? Oh,
Look
there's
at the
sky.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well,
there happens to be the sky. You sit around, you know.
It was a hell of a show too. Before you had all the light pollution and everything, when you could really see the stars, you know. It was a hell of a show.
In Las Vegas, they had a power outage at one point, and there were people that called in to report UFOs because they saw the stars for the first time in their life. And I thought, that is so sad.
Yeah.
They had no idea that it looked like that. You know,
I mean, and
give me
even
my
LA is like covered in smog and shit. I've been
Yep.
fortunate enough, like I got family that lives out in like the sticks, you know, here in
Mhm.
Missouri. And you go out there, man, it's like you're looking at a different sky almost, man. It's just so vivid
Oh yeah.
and just it's beautiful, man. It makes you, I
Well,
mean, you can understand why people spent so much time looking at the stars and why they were so invested in it.
okay, that brings up a good question. If you want to try to get back on the topic of 2020,
Let's go.
how does a person that's concerned about a wide array of issues feel like they're not letting an issue slip through the cracks? You know, right now we've got the anti-Trump movement, we got the Black Lives Matter movement, we've got the supposed Antifa. You know, you've got these strange boogaloo people that I've heard of now.
I haven't heard of
like,
them.
You haven't heard of the boogaloo stuff?
No, who's that?
Sounds. Apparently, it's the electric. I'm just gonna mess this all up.
Is it from Always Sunny in Philadelphia? What is it? The Electric Boogaloo?
I think it has something.
Some
It
shit
was
like
started
that?
as it was a 4chan joke or something that evolved into, hey, it's for real, and
Yeah.
now it's people showing up ready for the revolution type stuff. It's ridiculous.
On
crap.
what side? On left or right or no side or what?
I believe it's right, but I'm not sure it's not just trolls. So
Yeah.
and that's one of the funny things about right now is there's so much subversion going on that you don't know. Number one, you don't know who's doing the subversion.
Right.
You don't know when it's subversion. You don't know anything. It's everything's propaganda.
Right.
And I mean, right now there's good propaganda and bad propaganda. Every day I get up and participate in good propaganda. At least I think I am. I'm like, okay, I got to
anticipating it. You would anticipate? Oh,
no, participating.
Oh, okay.
I get up and I'm like, I gotta fight the negative propaganda out there. I gotta start blasting people with some good shit, you know. And
or
so
just, you know,
try to find stuff.
If it's the truth, you don't have to call it propaganda. If you're just speaking your truth, I mean, I think, in my opinion, and that's what I'm trying to do with the podcast. I don't want to call this propaganda. I'm trying to speak my truth and get other people's, you know, angles on it. But when this first started going down, and the riots and the protests started going down really heavy, and they started getting footage of you seen the Umbrella Man, right? The guy that knocked out the windows in the AutoZone.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right, and he started seeing stuff like that, and I'm like, damn, they've definitely infiltrated this riot or protest in order to turn it into a riot, in order to change the narrative, which is manipulation of the media, which is manipulation of the people, which is propaganda. And I'm like, I'm seeing what they're doing. And I'm like, they're going to try to start a race war.
That's what it feels like.
That's what it feels like. And that is not going to happen. And that cannot happen. We cannot let people break themselves down to that base level, because that is not the truth. And that's not what people want. And that's not where people's heart's at. Because everybody can agree that what happened to George Floyd was wrong, and it was gross, and it should have never happened. You have to be a heartless, soulless person to see somebody get kneeled on for 8 minutes and 46 seconds and think that was justified or okay. So if 90% of people can agree on that, that means most of us are on the same page. We're on the same page roughly. And the media and social media and people like to make it seem like that's not the case. But that's the case.
Well,
we agree more than we disagree.
I think the majority of us do, but I also think that there's a group of people out there who have swallowed the pill, have swallowed the hook so far that they don't want to admit it's a hook anymore. They're like, they're not hooked, they're holding on.
Right.
You know, they'd rather take responsibility for how far up his ass they are. And, you know, it's like, I didn't get suckered. I believe this. You know, it's like, it's cognitive dissonance, you know, and these people will look for excuses, you know. They'll watch this guy get kneeled on for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And then they'll come up with an excuse. They'll say, yeah, it was an accident. That's a bad apple, you know, and that's their excuse. And they'll wait, and somebody will say it, and then 4 or 5 people will say it, and all of a sudden they've ignored it. They've went all the way around it. They know that's bad, but they've justified it and twisted it in their mind. You let it go. Don't rock the boat. You know, we need police. It's worth getting killed over, because it's not them getting. Well, because it's not them. You know, it's not. You know, I was telling a friend of mine, I'm like, you know, it doesn't happen to me. It doesn't. As a white person, I get pulled over, and I hate getting pulled over, And I think they do harass me sometimes, and they're dickheads, but never one time have I ever been afraid of, of losing my life in an interaction with a cop. I was afraid of going to jail or what stupid crap they would pull on me, but I never, ever thought I'm going to get killed from this. And that blows my mind. Up until recently, I didn't realize how many Black people actually feel that way when they get pulled over. That there's an actual, that's crazy to me. And I've never felt that way.
And it's just, it's a sense of paranoia. It's just like, I got to make sure this goes right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you got to.
I just got to make sure. Yeah, if I'm moving my hands, I'm telling them I'm moving my hands. I'm reaching over here. Yeah. I'm being very clear with all my movements, and it's just, it's just
and they
like
still shoot people.
Yeah, I just don't want it to go wrong. It's like, it's probably not going to happen, but let's just try to avoid this going wrong. You know what I mean?
Well, it makes you so much more nervous in an interaction. If I thought my life was up in the line a little bit, I would be way more nervous. Right. I'm nervous enough just talking to the cops anyway, but having the thought that, oh shit, do they think I've got a gun? What do they think about me? And I've had some bad run-ins with the police, but they were never violent towards me. Now, there was, we always had the problem where the cops would bust down the door and come in and run everybody off for having a party. And you're like, why? We're all 21 here, why do we have to break up our party? But they would, and they didn't give any reasons for it. They just shut down your legal party and kick everybody out. It's like, okay, to me that's bullshit. Right. But I mean, that's that some of my friends have been beat. One of my good friends got here in St. Joe. They busted in, very much similar. So I don't know if there was a noise complaint or what it was. It was a big party going on after the bar closed, and bam, they come in, and a friend of mine stands up off the couch. I wasn't there for this. I'd actually went home, so this happened right after I left. My friend of mine stands up off the couch. He's a big, tall guy, and they immediately just tase him. He stood up like, what the hell? And that's what he said. He said, what the fuck? And it's tased, and everybody just cleared out of there. Well, another buddy of mine left his coat inside. And I don't know what, he probably should have just left, whatever. But he was like, can I go back in and get my coat? At this point, they've tased one guy. They ran everybody else off. And they say no, and then I don't know why, but he pursues that line of thought and asks again, and I don't know how it happened, but they ended up breaking his arm, beating him with their stick things. I saw him afterwards. He was beat, and I was like, and if you knew the guy, you knew that the most he did was mouth off. He didn't.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious we got a policing problem in America. Like, I know you could lie with stats, but I've seen somebody break down some stats where it's essentially Black men and Black people are getting killed at 3 times the rate as a white person.
Yeah.
And if that's, if that's the truth, and if that's the stats, that is sick and it's wrong. That's not, people are they're not getting their civil rights. That's not civil rights. If you're being killed like that, it's not civil rights, and there needs to be a change. And I think it's pretty simple. And it makes me really proud to see people come together, and it makes me really proud to see that states are attempting change. But, I honestly think it needs to be broken down to the point where I think it's too easy to become a cop. I think it's too easy. I don't think you have to work hard enough. It's like, I had to go to school for 4 years to do graphic design. I don't carry a gun. Right. I don't have people's lives in my hand and people's families. You know what I mean? And I worked hard for this shit. If you're going to be in a position where you have people's lives in your hands, you need to be educated. I think these people need multiple psychology classes. I think they need multiple sociology classes. I think they need even history classes. And I think they need to understand, why people behave the way they do, why different cultures behave the way they do, the differences between different cultures, how to interact with different cultures, and how to do your job right. Like when lawyers go to school, I mean, I don't know this. I know it's from movies. I didn't go to law school, but like they study like cases like Brown versus the Board of Education. They study different cases in history. I think police should have to go through the same thing for like a year or two, like where they study different police interactions that were handled very poorly and different police interactions that were handled very, well and very good. And they could see other people's pitfalls and they could learn from them. They could learn from, their own mistakes and kind of just evolve to be some people that we really respect and we really love to have in our community, not somebody that we fear or we have ill will towards, because that's not how the relationship should be.
Well, I think one of the keys for that happening, and this is my opinion, you know, there may be different ways of getting there, but one of the ways I'd like to get there is I'd like to see them disarmed, first off. And that right now, it's funny we say that, and then immediately people are like, oh my God, they're going to get killed. You know, the police are just going to be lying dead everywhere because they're disarmed, you know, and it's like, holy shit. And you think that for a second, but then you, wait a minute, and back up. Number one, other countries do it. That's first Japan. There's other ones. And yes, sometimes they do get killed in the line of duty, but not a whole lot. And I'd have to get the stats on that. The real issue is what interaction puts cops in the line of fire. And that's drug busts. The war on drugs. If you took away the war on drugs, we don't have to arm the police. They don't have to bust in with freaking shotguns. They don't have to have shootouts with drug deals gone bad because there's an informant and all this bullshit. We avoid 99% of all their bad interactions.
You avoid 90% of a lot of bullshit if you end the war on drugs, because you stop the drug trade, basically the illegal drug trade. You stop it, so you have a reduced number of people going to prison for drugs. You got reduced shootings and police shootings. You got I'm
not even questioning the morality of it. I'm just saying let people do whatever the fuck they want on that. You know, yes, I believe some drugs are pretty fucking bad, but believing drugs are bad has never stopped certain people from getting drugs. You know, they still do the drugs they want to do. And anyway, that's another argument on this side. But that senseless war on drugs has led to the militarization of the police.
Yeah.
And basically has led to them treating every person as a possible suspect. Now, when drugs became illegal, everybody's a suspect. Everybody could do drugs, you know. I mean, every black guy has weed on him, you know, and the whole. That's what I mean. Cops think that shit.
I mean, the whole war on drugs, in my opinion, and I think this could be backed up by some research, is basically a racist type situation, because when did the war on drugs happen? In the 80s? Ronald Reagan, right? Reagan era, right?
Exactly.
And
nobody wants
during
to
that
say
same
it
time, that was the height of the crack epidemic, right? The crack epidemic.
Which
and at that same time, as we know
the CIA
was flying that cocaine in, as we know, and that's unclassified. You could research that, right? But it's also crazy that you were charged 100 times to the extent of the law if you got caught with crack cocaine as opposed to powder cocaine. So that means you got in way worse trouble if you got caught with crack as opposed to powder, because rich people did powder and poor black people did crack. So there's racism just cooked into that whole situation that you were describing.
It's racism. It's racism. It's
classism.
It's stupidity. It's classism. It's all of it. And at the bottom line, to me, and this is where my goals personally coincide with the Black Lives Matter movement. And you know, I have a lot of white friends that are like, well, you really believe that? They've been doing that shit to us for a long time. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, first off, I really do believe it. And even if you're right, what's the worst that happens? We use the Black Lives Matter movement to get fucking justice done, you know, to get an advance in civil rights for all people.
Right.
Okay, I'm on board. Fucking, I don't give a crap who's called whatever you want. I'm on board for that. You know,
as Americans,
let's get rid of this.
We should be ready for it. Yeah, as Americans, we should be ready for it.
It kills me. I keep seeing people that I grew up with that were rebellious, anarchists, you know, freedom people, and somehow they're all on the right, and they're all these strange, brainwashed.
I have a theory.
I don't like saying brainwashed. But
I think it's pretty close. I have a theory.
Because it's
I have a theory.
It brings me back to the book 1984, and they talk about double speak and double think. And this has been on my mind a lot lately. You have to believe contradicting concepts simultaneously.
Right.
You have to believe that you are oppressed and you are the winner simultaneously. That's what the conservative right now, the Trump fan, not all. Right. I'm not going to say all conservatives, because there are still good conservatives out there.
Yeah, of course.
But I'm talking about the Trumpers and the MAGA people.
Yeah.
These people simultaneously believe they are the victims and the bully. They
it's
are
like a cult
the winner
almost.
and the loser.
It's a cultish type of vibe. And then, my dad said this to me before, and I was like, really? But as I started thinking about it, he has a Hitlerish type of vibe. The way he gives these passionate speeches, and these people just rally behind him, and he could just say the craziest shit, and people are like, yeah, that's smart.
Yeah.
Like, really? You think he's a leader? Like, when you seen him walk down where he kicked out all those protesters and fucked them all up so he could walk by the church and hold the Bible like it was burning him. It looked like it was burning his soul when he's holding that Bible. He couldn't even hold it. And I'm like, look at this dude. This dude's a clown. How he handled this whole situation. A real leader would have said, the country's going through growing pains. We need to all come together even stronger and to, bring back justice for Americans. But no, that's not what he said. He inflamed the right, and he made the left feel like he doesn't fuck with them. And, the people feel like he doesn't rock with them. So it's like, fuck this dude,
It speaks to a certain subset of beliefs. There's a lot of people that are tired of, and I'm speaking from their perspective, I imagine at this point. These are not my beliefs. There's a lot of people that believe that they've been walked on, they've been forced to say things, and somehow they're being oppressed because their thoughts are being controlled by, they're not allowed to say offensive things anymore. And, they've got this John Wayne attitude, like, now's the time, fuck it. Have you seen the clip of the John Wayne walking up to the boy and that boy doesn't know how to swim? Oh yeah, he does. You throw him in the water,
No, I haven't seen that.
That's John Wayne, that's how John Wayne does it. He walks up, this little pussy needs to swim. You throw him in the water and he sinks or he fucking swims. That's the way it goes.
Right.
Well,
right.
Okay, there are people out there that's how they think. And when they see the president come out and do the right thing, like what you just said, the right thing, which we see as intelligence and a sign of good leadership, they see weak. That's what they see. And when Trump comes out there and says, well, I'm going to do a photo op, clear the people out, and they plow through the people, and he goes over there and does his thing, they see exactly what they want.
That's crazy, because it looked like weakness to me when he's cowering in the basement in the tunnels under the White House when he's too scared to walk his own house.
Yeah, they run some cognitive dissonance or some interference in the brain at this point, when as soon as you tell anybody that's a hardcore Trumper anything negative about Trump, either they think you're lying or they think he was justified in doing it. And there's nothing that doesn't fit those two things. So you say, well, he was in the bunker, and they'll say, well, of course he was in the bunker because the Secret Service has a protocol and they just take him to the bunker automatically. He didn't have a choice in that matter.
Right. A lot of caping.
That's the excuse.
Caping,
yeah. But that's everything. They don't care. Number one, this subset of people, it's not a lot. If you really think about it, these hardcore Trumpsters make up, I don't know, 10, 20%, maybe even less. They're just super vocal. I think that
20%. I can see 20%. There's a lot of. I think the people that like them, they really like them, and they're out there.
Yeah. Oh, there's hardcore. They call it a vocal minority. In our modern government or political system, a vocal minority grabs the attention of the media. So you could have, it's like this, a room full of 100 people. There's 100 people in a room, and there's one guy dressed up as a clown, freaking juggling. That's the guy everybody's watching.
Right.
And over on the other side, there's this other dude. There's two dudes fighting. Oh, okay, everybody's watching them. Let's go look at them. It's not the media's fault. It's not anybody's fault. It's just a minority, like the Fred Phelps people.
I think it is the media's fault, though, man, because it's so divisive. They take the same facts, they take the same reality, and one shifts it and spins it to favor the left, and one shifts it and spins it to favor the right, and they're both shitting on each other. And it's like there's one truth, there's one reality. I know everybody has their own perspective and opinions, but they're just lying to people, and they're shifting shit, and they're manipulating people, and that is a problem. We don't have any truth in media. There's no truth.
The problem with media is we lost some very valuable social concepts in the last, 30, 50 years, something like that. And that's honor.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a good thing, but we used to have an honor system, something we felt. There was honor and pride. You didn't have to make a shitload of money, and you still had this pride for what you did. And there was honor
pride
in journalism.
Yeah. A journalist takes pride in finding out the truth and presenting the truth.
There was even honor in some violence, and some types of fighting. But now we are a very dishonorable society at the moment. You know, that we really glorify the pursuit of material wealth.
Right.
I mean, to the point where that it surprises us that our own culture has devolved into materialistic pursuits. So you have media that essentially follow a rule. The rule is, if people watch it, we show it to them. And if they keep watching it, we'll show them more.
Viewers.
And whatever they watch,
Viewers
we'll
and
keep showing,
advertising.
we'll keep showing. We've lost, and so you got the left and the right advertisers, and the right people are like, oh shit, we lost the left ones. We probably won't get them back, but we better keep our guys. And anytime they show something that the crowd doesn't believe, if when Fox News shows stories that are true and the people on the right don't like it, they stop watching Fox.
Right.
And they lose viewership. So Fox is like, oh shit, we better tell them the lies they want to hear.
Right. Then you lose that integrity. And like you were saying,
there's
with
no integrity.
this culture moving more into a materialistic type of culture, I think it's evident, and I think it's reflected in the president.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's
exactly
ultra materialistic, quote unquote business guy. You know what I mean? The face of
rich means smart.
It equates rich. Yeah.
Minds.
It equates richness equals good. You know.
Yeah.
Which
there is
a kind of a new concept, relatively in time. You know.
Because
the Bible, you know, is very careful about saying stuff like that. The Bible says it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to get into heaven. You know, and there's a couple quotes like that, and I'm, you know, not saying that that's to be taken literal, but the Bible's very critical of stuff like that. And it's interesting that these people consider themselves like the right's supposed to be the really Christian, and really, you know, that's
there's
ironic.
also verses.
There's contradictions everywhere.
I can't quote them right now, but in the New Testament, there's a lot of stuff that speaks towards God rewarding his followers with wealth. And there's a lot of wealth-based religion. And one of the things I think we forget with religion is we assume that people are locked into their beliefs based on the rules of their religion. And it's just not true. I mean, obviously it's not true. People say they believe one thing and do very different things.
Right.
You know, you got these super preachers and these super big mega churches, whatever they're called. They're filthy rich. Crazy. I mean, anybody looking at them should obviously see that these guys are scammers, but their followers say, "Oh, he's a man of God and he deserves it."
I mean,
you know, that's a weird thought to me.
You remember when the floods or the hurricane happened in Texas? And Joel Osteen has this huge mega church, right? And he closed the doors and he wouldn't let people have shelter in his church.
No.
And it's crazy. No. Do you remember that? Do you remember that happened?
Yeah, I remember that.
And that's just like crazy. It's like
he was, from a business perspective, it was a good decision. Because from a business perspective, if he would have dirtied up his church, he would have lost followers that only follow him for the materialistic bullshit. So he's got to maintain. It's materialism all the way through,
man. So counterintuitive. Yeah. But obviously, there's a lot of problems with religion. But
the problem, anytime a society, not just religion, but anytime a society gets oriented towards material wealth and just the attainment of wealth as being your primary goal, everything else starts taking second seat to that.
You lose honor. You lose integrity.
You do because it's better to. Being poor is the worst thing that could ever happen to an American. Right. You know, if you're poor, you're a failure. It's your
even
own
though in America, like our poorest people are richer than some of the rich people in other countries. It's crazy.
But they're taught that they're worthless.
Right.
I mean, the poor.
No, you're 100% right. You're 100% right. We equate wealth with good and poor with bad.
Yeah, and it's just not true.
It's not true.
It's not true. It's the same as saying intelligence is going to make you rich, because I know lots of super freaking smart people that are not rich and they're happy though. I mean, some of them aren't, but.
Well, I mean, the only true luxury and the only true wealth you could have is happiness.
Yeah,
that's the only true wealth you could have.
Gandhi, I'm a fan of Gandhi, said that happiness is when your thoughts and your actions are the same, or when your thoughts on the inside match the actions on your outside. I'm butchering that quote. It's
I get the vibe. I get the feeling. Yeah.
And it's basically when you're in tune with yourself. Speaking of Gandhi, I recently saw that they tore down the Gandhi statue in, I can't remember what country it is. It's in Africa, South Africa, maybe.
Really?
It wasn't South Africa. Well, see, there's a story that goes along with Gandhi about him being a racist.
Yeah.
And you know what? He was, that was in his younger years. He spent a lot of time in South Africa, and it was ironic because he was fighting for the rights of Indians in South Africa, and he ended up coming back to India and fighting for the rights of Indians there. But during that time in South Africa, his views on the native population were just awful. I mean, he called them by the I can't remember what it's called. It was some slang word, and he made some comment about how he thought they were beasts, So he did talk derogatory about them. But for me, when I read the stuff he says when he's 60, he's just a totally different person, And so for me, I don't get really outraged that they tore down the statue, even though I like Gandhi, because sometimes people just have a fucking anger,
Yeah.
It's a statue. What do I care? Gandhi would be mad that there was a statue of him anyway, and they tore down his statue and it made him feel better. Did they do it for the right reasons? I don't know. But you know what? If every day they go outside and that's their country and they see a guy that makes them think,
makes them feel bad or whatever,
they calls them beasts,
right?
Fucking take the damn statue down. Don't look at it. And I'm not.
And
mad
then
about
sometimes
that.
like there's that whole philosophy of like where you have to separate the art from the artist. You know what I mean? Sometimes you have to separate what people, the things that people brought into the world from the actual person, because it gets complicated.
That's an interesting question, because right now I am on the side of everybody that wants to tear down these old monuments of this bullshit that honor these. It's not that they honor people that were racist, but they honor people that had racist philosophies,
Right. And it should have happened a long time ago. We should have.
Yeah.
Long time ago, they should have been down, in my opinion.
But if there's a statue of, I'm trying to think of somebody, Jim Morrison. Okay, there's a statue of Jim Morrison somewhere, and whatever. And we read a book, and one day we find out, Jim Morrison was racist about Mexicans at some point, Do we tear down Jim Morrison's statue at that point because he had a racist view?
I think, you know what I think you do?
I don't know.
I think maybe you put it in a rock and roll museum. You tear it down from the public civic space and you put it in a rock and roll museum. And same with those statues. I agree. Yeah. Throw them down, burn them, shit on them. I don't care. Or if the people really get butthurt about it, put it in a Civil War museum or in a.
Now that would be interesting.
And then you can still preserve it because it is history, and you don't want to erase history because you don't want to repeat history. But those things should be reflected. They shouldn't be reflected just out and about. You shouldn't have to go on a walk to a park and see, a slave master in this modern era. You just shouldn't.
You're right.
There should be a time and a place because, because it is history and it's a fact, and we got to make sure we don't repeat it. But I agree.
Well, here's the thing I think is funny. There are a handful of people in this country. When I say a handful, I mean a small percentage of people that actually give a shit about visiting statues.
Right.
I mean, for the most part, none of us give a shit about statues unless it's a really fucking big one or a teeny tiny one. Then little tiny things are pretty cool, and big fucking statues of liberty are cool. But everything else, I don't care about that. The people that are butthurt about these statues being torn down don't give a shit about them. They're only coming out of the woodwork now because, hey, you can't take down that statue that you don't like, that reminds you of bad things constantly that I never go look at anyway.
Exactly. Yeah, right.
Fuck you,
Yeah.
You don't even care about it. You just want it there.
You just want to bitch about it. Everybody has an opinion now. Social media gives everybody an opinion where they could get their shit off, and for better and for worse.
I don't mind opinions.
Me neither.
I've been on the internet since 1990. Well, actually, it was before that. I started on Prodigy.net, which was a dial-up service you called, and I got on message boards, and that was in 92. And 93. And anyway, I've been having internet debates and conversations since that point in time. My first arguments were about Led Zeppelin, my favorite music at the time. I would argue about Jimmy Page and the Prodigy things. And then it just evolved into a MIRC and IRC chat servers, and I would go on there, and that was when I was really into religious stuff, and I would debate scripture with people on Bible and scripture and all the different chat rooms.
Right.
And that was fun, but never was it like it is now. It was never like this. And the main thing that changed
is access. It's access. Because people in that time, people they were searching for that. You had to go out of your way and kind of be in the know to find these chat rooms and do this stuff. You had to really be interested in it. Now it's like everybody has a phone, everybody has the app, and everybody has an opinion. So those three things go together.
Well, do you think it's coincidence that the initiative for rural broadband access has coincided with the downfall of opinion on the internet?
Really?
It's not about rural. Well, I mean, think about it. Recently, over the last 10 years, they've had this huge initiative to get broadband to everybody out on the farms, you know?
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden they're all on the fucking internet.
No, dude, I think there's idiots everywhere, you know. I really do.
No, I don't. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I come from farmers.
Yeah, me too, man. I think there's people are dumb no matter where they come from. I heard I've seen on your social media that you recently, or maybe not recently, took down your rebel flag that you had.
Yes. Oh, no, it was a long time ago I took it down. I had one when I was, well, not a long story. My mom moved to Mississippi when I was in a freshman in high school. So what, 14, 15, something like that. And she was gone for a long time. And I went down and visited her. And one of the things that I brought back was freaking Dixie flag, you know, the rebel flag, which to me was a symbol of nothing racist. It was just a South thing, you know, and
kind of rebellious
it's rebellious. You know, who had it? Lemmy always had it on his guitar, and let's see who else. The Dukes of Hazzard had, you know, their car's named the General Lee. And you're younger than me, so you didn't grow up watching that. But this was a TV show that every kid my age was like glued to the screen. This was the show.
I see reruns. Yeah,
it's a horrible show. But when I was five, it was fucking badass.
Right.
The General Lee would jump something every show, and it's a big fucking bright orange car with that rebel flag, you know, and they would always run from the cops. That was their thing, you know. They're always running from the cops and doing half illegal shit, you know. And it was that sort of thing. And so I had the toys, you know, with little rebel flags on them and things like that. I just thought it was cool. That's all I thought. It didn't mean anything to me. It just meant cool shit, you know. And ironically, there is a person, my cousin, was in my grandma's house. We lived next door to my grandma's house, and he saw that flag hanging in my window, you know, covering up my basement. I lived in the basement of my dad's house when I was 16. And he said, "Hey, that flag's racist." This is my cousin. And I said, "No, it's not." And I was arguing the other side. I'm like, "It's not racist. What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, it is. That's racist. That's blah, 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 blah." And he's telling me the thing that now I believe, you know. I just thought he was full of shit at the time.
Right.
But I took it down because I didn't want anyone, if he thought it was racist, I'm like, "Oh, I don't want anyone to think I'm racist." So I went ahead and took it down. And then years later, it started being the issue it is. This 90, I was 16 in 91, 92, somewhere in the early 90s. And then this started being the issue back in, when did that start? 10 years ago?
Yeah,
I mean, it's always been an issue, but really up and, yeah. So, but the funny thing is my cousin now is for the flag. He's one of the,
how times will change you, right?
He's one of those Trumpsters.
Oh man,
and he's all about
that's ironic.
The flag.
That's
the rebel flag. And I keep thinking, man, you are the one that pointed out it was a racist flag to me back when I was a kid. You know, how funny is that? And I see him post this stuff. But for me, it wasn't. I'll be honest.
I get it, man, because I grew up in small towns. I knew kids that had rebel flag stuff, and they weren't racist. They weren't racist. They were cool people. I bought a rebel flag belt buckle in Branson that I wore for a while as a troll. But I get why people don't fuck with it, because it is a symbol of the losing team of America. We fought this team. We fought them, and they wanted slavery, and they wanted to fight us and kill us, and we killed them, basically, you know.
Yeah.
And we won, and that was the flag of the losing opposing team. That's not, you know, that's not real Americans. But at the same time, people are becoming more quote unquote woke. Society is becoming more and more PC. I want to see people have their civil rights. I want to see these monsters in the highest positions go to jail. But I do not want to see Americans lose their freedoms. Americans should have their freedoms to express themselves however they feel like expressing themselves. You know what I mean? As long as you're not hurting anybody or disrespecting anybody. I mean, I completely think that's the truth. If I see, I even kind of encourage it. If I see a white person out and they got a rebel flag shirt on, it's like, okay, watch out for that. That's the guy. Watch out for him. You know what I mean? Keep your antennas open, because he's letting you know that he might not share the same views as you. You know, I almost rather you be overt with it instead of covert with it. That's one thing about Trump, is like, a lot of these politicians and a lot of these presidents they're wolves in sheep's clothing. They come at you like a sheep, but really they're a wolf. Trump from the beginning said, I'm a wolf, I'm racist, I'm stupid, I'm going to say what I want. And he completely, if you believe him, you're the fool. You know what I mean? And so you got to kind of let people, you know, express themselves and have their freedoms without,
they say that when people show you who they are, believe them.
Yeah, you know? For sure. I mean, my main point I was getting to is that I definitely want to see America evolve. I want to see people have their civil rights, of course, but I don't think we have to do that at the expense of losing our freedoms and our liberties and our rights to express ourselves in non-violent ways.
Right,
you know what I mean?
right. You know, it's a real tricky thing, because a lot of people think that the only way you can get stuff like that is through violence. And I don't know what I believe yet on that. I mean, I want to believe that there are other ways besides violence. And of course, the political process is your first step.
That's all bullshit though, right?
No,
I know we kind of disagree when it comes to this point, because I'm from the belief of it's all bullshit, and you have faith. You have faith in the system.
I don't have faith in it. Well, yeah, I do have. I have faith in humans eventually. I do have faith because I have one belief that if you get rid of everything else, if you get rid of all your anger, and if you get rid of all the hate you have and anxiety and fear and everything, that what is left is love.
Right.
Love isn't a thing you develop. It's not something you have to work at. You have to get everything else to be quiet. You finally calm down under all that other bullshit, and you'll find out that, oh, you've got this sense of love for your fellow man you didn't know you had. You just had all this anger in the way. And you got to find, each of us has to find that in our opponent. And this is one of the things that I've learned from Gandhi, essentially, is that he viewed the struggle for your rights and the struggle for things that are just, and what he called truth, to be a game of sorts, and that you are always playing it against an opponent, and that there are rules to the engagement, and you should have a certain standard for your behaviors in this relationship you have with your opponent. And that's the way he treated it. If you let's say, pick anybody was your opponent, if you really want to get to a resolution with your difficulties with them, you have to build a relationship with them, which means you have to find ways to identify.
I think you should do the same thing with your thinking, but go ahead.
No, yeah. Well, I think we want to get there right now, and there's a lot of, I hate saying a lot, I know people that want to get there violently. They think we have to be violent. And I'm like, you're not making a relationship then. You're not showing people trust. You're not meeting people halfway. When you engage your opponent, the first thing you do is you give them your trust, even though they don't deserve it. You meet them halfway. You do what you say. When your opponent falls, you pick them up. You don't enjoy their failures. This is the key to earning trust in an opponent relationship. Like, there's just a certain way that you have this honor system with yourself. And even if your opponent doesn't give that back to you at all. You build that with them. And the idea is that eventually you're going to break through. You may not break through on everyone. You're going to break through on half, a quarter. You don't have to break through on everybody. But if you can get, if you can build, well, I'm sure you've heard about this, that one dude up in oh fuck, I can't remember where it was. He won over those Klansmen by going and just hanging out with them all the time.
Yeah, yep.
That fucking story is amazing. Actually,
it is a great story.
And
great story. Yeah.
It doesn't get enough traction because it's not, it's not really sensational. But what happened is sensational. He goes in there.
No, that's an amazing
literally
story. Just starts building, having conversations with them, building trust.
Like, hey, I want to be your friend, and then they can't deny it. He takes them. He's more effective than anybody. I mean,
right.
You could have fucking 20 protests that wouldn't change one goddamn mind, but this dude goes in and just like, hey, let's all be friends, and suddenly you've cured a group of at least their surface affliction of racism.
Well, I mean, I agree with you and I disagree with you. I agree with you on the terms of like when you're having ideas and you're going through your thought process, you have to weigh both sides, and you have to you have to have an argument in your own head and see things from both point of views before you could really articulate your argument. I'm a firm believer in that. But the protest thing is tricky, and I don't know if it's just in America or if it's a human thing, but it's like,
oh, I didn't mean to say the protests weren't valuable, because they're valuable. They're valuable.
The Colin Kaepernick protest was about as peaceful as it gets. It's a guy kneeling during the national anthem. He's not saying anything. He's not doing anything besides kneeling, right? And a couple people. He was
dishonoring the flag and soldiers.
And people lost their fucking minds, right? People lost their fucking shit because of a man or a few men kneeling. And then and nothing changed. Nothing changed. It just made it made him look kind of silly, and it made the whole thing look kind of silly, and nothing changed at all. When these protests happened and everybody in every state stood up and stood together, for the most part peacefully, that now we're seeing immediate people advocating defunding the police and people actually considering it. We're seeing people getting charges pressed on them. We're seeing people, other cases that were, not related to George Floyd's case, but other Black people that have been murdered by police. We're seeing them follow up on that investigation. We're seeing more immediate results. And I mean, I think that mass scale peaceful protest, I think, is what you need, because it's almost like a strike, at work, because, sometimes the boss might get a little bit too comfortable and like, all these employees, you work for me, you work for me, you work for me, and I run shit. But really, it's the people in the company that make it work. You have to, and that's just how it is with America. You need the people to make it work. If you don't have the people, if the people shut down, if the people say no, then that's what it is. The people have control. It's not this small minority of the government that has control. They have zero control. It's our country, and we have control. You work for us.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I mean, obviously, I think it needs to be peaceful, but there has to be a strong show of, we are not vibing with this. We are not going for this anymore. This is not what we're going to do. You know what I mean? Right. I think it has to be a pretty kind of forceful but peaceful type of protest, which we've seen, which we're seeing now. What do you think about what's going on in Seattle, man? Have you checked that out?
What's their end game on there? I haven't looked up too much.
No idea.
I just want to know what their end game is.
I have no idea. I just think it's fascinating that they took over that city and they are still doing it. There's no police.
Wow,
it's wild.
Okay. Well, they ought to just give them badges and call them the new cops for there.
Or just make it what's that thing they do in the summer every year? Or not in the summer, but in the desert. That huge festival. Yeah, they should just make a Burning Man city, and it could just be like chaos. Just no laws there in that city. That'd be funny.
Well, it's important. I think we're going through a major change in our society, and it has to do with, this sounds hokey, but I really truly believe we are at a level of a certain awakening, and we go through this, man goes through these from time to time, sometimes it's backwards, sometimes it's forwards, but there's a certain awareness that's coming over us, that's saying, we don't have to live the way people have told us we have to live, the American concept of, get up and go to work for this many hours every single day. You have the weekends off. This is what you do. You have 2 kids. It's cookie cutter life the way it's supposed to be. You buy a house, you get in debt, blah, 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 you die, you know?
Right.
And then as it progresses over time, it gets harder and harder to do. And now all of a sudden everybody's questioning, why the fuck did we do this? You know, are your parents happy? Are my parents happy? You know, we had 2 generations of reasonably happy people. That was my grandparents retired. Neither one of my parents are retired. You know, neither one of my grandparents' parents had decent lives. But you had one group of people. You know, people that
like
had a
50s.
Reasonably.
You're talking about the 50s, right?
Yeah, 50s. And then, but even those people, like my grandpa, he was miserable most of the time. He had post-traumatic stress disorder. He had electroshock therapy. He was a Marine in the war, and he had fucking tons of his buddies get killed and bad shit happen. He would never even talk about it.
Well, isn't life itself kind of miserable? Isn't that the game of life a little bit? Don't you have to have some give and take, some push and pull for you to really feel the beauty of life?
That's
it has to be a little bit miserable, right? So you can appreciate the beauty of it. If it was just beautiful and great all the time, you would never appreciate it. It would just be normal. But when you do have those lows, and when you do have that shit that fucks with you and your own problems, when you overcome them, it feels that much better. So there has to be a little bit of that shit.
There is a struggle, and that's, you know, it's funny because I think we're bouncing through these different levels. You know, there's the big picture. Like you step back to the big picture, it's like, and it's all just kind of a game anyway, and we're gonna die, and it didn't really matter.
Right.
But down, you know, on this level, you have to you grow as a person. You have struggles and yada yada yada, and then down one more level to the total microcosm. You know, it's like you have your individual struggle. You know,
right.
You yes, I have to suffer, but I don't want to suffer. You know, and yes, I know I have to die, but I don't want to die. And so you struggle against the very things that give your life its worth anyway. You know, it's like you're a walking contradiction.
Definitely. We are. Yeah.
And that's kind of what drives us. But, you know, I have a lot of strange views on what our individual purposes are in life anyway. And I think overall, I do have a sense of joy. And when I'm calm, I realize it's there. Sometimes I get too wrapped up in anxiety and I don't feel it. And that's because life is like a roller coaster. You know, it is a ride. I do believe it's one that I may not remember the choice, but I'm pretty sure I chose to get on this ride at some point, you know, prior to my existence. And I think I rode this one, you know, it was like, hey, the Tommy Burnett ride. And it's like, yeah, I'll try this one out. Oh, it looks like there's some real shitty parts right over there in their 40s. That's going to be interesting. Let's see how it goes, you know? And
well, if you think about it, life is a series of problems. Like we all have problems, like a few problems in our life right now, right? And we're going to solve those problems. And then by the time we solve those problems, there's going to be new problems that arise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then by the time we solve those problems, and there's constant work we need to do on ourselves. Like with me, I'm constantly trying to improve myself in different ways, but it's like whack-a-mole. I whack one and then I see another problem pop back up. And so I'm constantly trying to evolve and better myself. And it's never ending. And I don't think that makes it futile though. Just because it's a never ending process. Now. What are you facing?
Overcoming some of my own obstacles, you know, and that's, I've been facing that forever, just like what you're talking about. But for me right now, it's I'm learning a new sound system, or a DAW for recording music, and I feel so old learning something new. You know, it's like, oh Jesus Christ, I'm so old now. And even when it gets working right, every once in a while, I'll feel like, do I look like some old grandpa doing this? You know, because here I am playing, it's all freaking like dubstep, drum and bass crap, you know, and I'm like, what's it look like me playing this really? Am I going to be able to pull this shit off? No. But anyway, no, that's a challenge for me. So what it's caused me to do is procrastinate a lot. I find myself like, I've got a list of songs. I've got plans. I've got exactly what I need to do with each one. And then sometimes I sit down and I'll fuck around for like 2 hours and not do a goddamn thing with the music. And I'm like, shit, I didn't even lift a finger to do anything. And then, you know,
it's funny because like problems are relative too, because, you know, me and you, we think we have problems, but these are first world problems. You know, there's guys in Skid Row in LA that live homeless on the street. They got problems for real. You know what I mean? They got real problems. And then you got to go to people in other countries. Like, they have real problems. So it's like, and sometimes you got to be like, I wouldn't trade my problems for this person's problems. You know what I mean? You got to be kind of happy you have your own problems and that they're as tame as they are.
I saw a guy asking for money on getting off of 129.
Yeah.
And he had a sign up. Or was it there? Anyway, it was somewhere. And he had a sign up that said, "Bet you can't hit me with a quarter." Or something like that. And he was standing there doing this shit. And I'm like, well, that's fucking creative.
Yeah, that's
and of course,
clever.
I looked for quarters because I was like, I'll nail you.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I got
I
got two stories about homelessness because like I was born in LA and I've been back and forth. So when you go to LA, you see it a lot more than you see it in St. Joe. You know what I mean?
Oh,
it's a lot more of a thing. And you know, you go there, you got vacation money, you got a little pocket change, you give it to people and stuff every now and again, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I remember one time we were like on the beach and we were by this liquor store and we were in there to get something to drink or whatever. And there was this like homeless dude on the ground. I'm like, well, I got some loose change. I got like 75 cents or whatever. So I just give it to him while we're walking in. Somehow this guy beats us into the liquor store, grabs a beer, brings it up to the counter, and the guy won't even serve him. The guy won't even let him buy it because he's fucking standing outside all day just drinking his life away. He's like, no, get the fuck out of here, dude. And then I was like, damn, that made me really think about like when you're trying to be generous and you're giving from a good spot in your heart, but like, what are these people doing with it? Like, you know what I mean? I give you this shit to get some food. I didn't, you know, give it to you to get drunk. But I guess once I give it to you, it's your prerogative what you do. So, but
sometimes those people are there because they're out. You know, maybe that guy's a hardcore alcoholic. Maybe he's lost everything.
I'm sure he was.
And if maybe, you know, if you've ever known a hardcore alcoholic, they just can't quit. I know people that have almost died from withdrawals.
Well, there's a lot of that. A lot of alcoholism, a lot of drug addiction with them homeless people for sure. And it's sad. That's why we need more mental health and we need more programs.
Well,
but I have another story, and this is more lighthearted, and this one's more fun, right? So I'm in Kansas City, and we're going like to check out this job site or whatever. I was working, and we're driving, and we're getting like towards the heart of the city or closer to the heart of the city. And there's this homeless guy like at the end of this little exit. I'm like, okay, there's a homeless guy. Okay. And he has a sign, you know, okay, standard, you know, like homeless, stereotypical homeless dude, right? And we get closer to him, keep creeping up closer to him. His sign says smile. And it fucked me up completely. It fucked me up because I had this perception of him, and I had this perception that he was begging for money or something, right? Yeah. And his simple message was just smile. I was like, damn, dude, it just hit me. I'm like, that's fucking deep. Funny. And it brightened my day, honestly.
My biggest problem that I have with working with homeless people is always that I'm afraid that they're dirty. And now that sounds horrible to say, but it's my biggest fear, and I need to get over it. You know, not to toot my own horn or anything, but I've done not enough. I've done some work down at the food kitchen, you know, with people down there. Not even nearly enough to even say I do it all the time. But on the few times that I'm down there and serve people, most of them don't smell bad. Most of them are pretty clean, actually, for being on the street. But some of them smell so bad, and it will freak me out. And I'm just speaking the truth here. And what that has always been one of my fears. You know, I'm kind of like a germaphobe like that. You know, and I didn't want to degrade. Like there was a guy one time I gave money to outside of Woods Mini Mart down there on Frederick. And he wanted to shake my hand afterwards. And he was so dirty. And I just thought, oh God. But I didn't want to insult him and not shake his hand, you know?
Right.
So I shook his hand. And then I got in the car and like didn't let my hand touch anything. And I was like, I'm ashamed of that, you know? But I'm ashamed of that. But at the same time, I have that. And I've got, that's a thing that I need to work on in myself, you know, and get over that. But I don't know what you said something. That was one of my dogs are having a war.
Yeah, it happens with my dog and my cat all the time.
Chill.
I don't know, man. I think it's a lot of mental illness and family trauma, man, that leads people to that position. And we need to have more. I think we should have more empathy for them as a collective, as a society, because people don't choose. People don't. As a kid, you're like, you know what? When I grow up, I'm going to live on the street. You know, that's not people's goal. That's not people's ambition. Life just kind of fucking threw them there. There's this really good, what's it called? The soft white underbelly. it's an interview series on YouTube that I watch every now and again. This photographer goes down the Skid Row in LA and he interviews homeless people, drug addicts, prostitutes, pimps, you know, just people that are just living on the street basically. And pretty much 99% of their stories are, my childhood was fucked up, you know, horrible parents, horrible situations, the worst shit ever. And then of course you're gonna end up on the streets. You know, if you have all that fucking trauma and all that bullshit around you all the time, it's like, of course, how can you handle it? What are you supposed to do? So I think a lot, like, you got to have compassion for those people because Lord knows, you know, what they've been through and what put them there.
Well, so, at least feed them. I mean, at least give them a place, give them shelter. And
well, have you seen those cities where they have, like, they're busier cities and they have, like, where homeless people would usually try to, like, lay down and rest. They make it purposefully uncomfortable. And
I
they
think
design
that should
it and engineer it. It's pretty cruel.
I think that, I think that's very cruel.
Yeah.
In fact, I wish they would tear all that shit down. It's I don't know. You know, it's one thing to walk around and have enough money to end homelessness if we wanted to. It's just with a portion of the military budget that we spend. But to go the step further of making it harder for them to live, that's just fucking gross, man.
Yeah, it's pretty
just
rough.
Disgusting. And, you know, anyway, I digress.
You think you'd have more compassion for your fellow man, but I guess not. You never were really the conspiracy theory guy. For a guy like you, were never the conspiracy theory guy.
Oh, I used to be.
Did you? Because for a guy that carries so many different views and thinks out of the box as much as you do, you would think you're like a prime candidate for being a conspiracy theory guy, but you never really were. Or you're not now. You were at some point?
I'm not now. I were. I was.
Yeah.
Up until, let's see, what was the first? I liked conspiracy stuff. In fact, I used to like Rush Limbaugh, believe that. Back when Clinton was in office and Rush Limbaugh first got together. I say conspiracy and him together because, in essence, he's a conspiracy theorist person too. They're all full of shit though. Took me a while to realize.
Anyway, what were you saying about the book? You were reading the book and it turned you off because none of it was coming true.
Oh no, none of the books turned me off. It was just all. I got to a point where I felt like the conspiracy theories, I could make them all true. I could just make them all true, and no matter how absurd or whatever it was, I could bend my mind into believing it. You know, I could make myself believe contradictory fucking theories, and after a while, I just started asking myself what good it did. And that was the real question. It's not that I don't believe in conspiracy theories. I just don't know that it does any good for me to believe in them. I don't have any power to change them beyond voting or civil disobedience, protests, things like that.
Right.
And I only do that stuff when there's an immediate thing that comes up. So for me, my paranoia and my involvement in conspiracy theories just came to an end when I don't remember what it was, but it was a moment, and I was like,
I'm just over this. I'm done with it.
Yeah, that's what it was, and I never, and since that point, and you know what, I won't say I lost a friend because I didn't lose him. He's one of my best friends, but one of my best friends is really big into conspiracy stuff, and after I dropped it, we didn't have a lot to talk about. You know, because I wasn't into digging into the Freemasons anymore. It wasn't fun to me anymore, you know?
Right.
You know, we went to fucking initiations. We read the Duncan's Ritual and tried to become members of the Scottish Rite and did all this other stuff, you know, and I told you, I pledged the OTO down in Kansas City.
Yeah, that's not conspiracy theory shit. That's occultic shit, basically.
Yeah, kind of. Illuminati. You know,
was that your intent? Were you trying to join the Illuminati?
Yeah, of course. Really? Well, if there's somebody in charge, okay. So if there is a power structure in place, whether it's the Illuminati or the Masons,
you know what that breaks down into, right? The Illuminati, the whole concept. It's very basically devil worship.
Okay.
And so people that sell their souls
Oh,
literally
yeah,
or metaphorically to the devil, and for an exchange of power and fame and money. And that's
yeah.
it gets more elaborate. Of course, the theory is more elaborate than that, but that is basically what it breaks down to. So I wonder why you didn't do something more elaborate.
Oh, me?
If that was your goal, you know, I
Well,
never wanted to. I got into that shit really heavy my freshman year in college. I was just smoking a lot of pot and not going to class. And like I figured if I researched and studied conspiracy theories, I was actually doing something. You know what I mean? I was actually learning something. So
it's empowering.
I got deep and heavy into it because it shifts the whole way you view the world. It changes your whole paradigm once you just get information. Because conspiracy theories aren't people just blowing smoke up your ass. There's major flaws in some narratives. There's major holes in some stories that leads people to believe these things. But you know, I agree with you. I'm dipping back up a little bit, but I'm going back down. I left them alone for a while after I had my kid and going to 9 to 5, like shit. Like you don't have time to be so lofty with your thoughts and like you know what I mean? Like there's only, like you said, there's only so much you could do. But there is a part of me, and I don't know what it is when it comes to religion and spirituality and psychology and philosophy and what's going on in this world. There's a part of me that wants to know more or to gain more understanding so I can figure out how to navigate this thing we call life.
How to navigate. Well, that's in essence what it's really about. I mean, not I don't mean this like in a megalomaniac type of way, but it's about power, you know, control over your own life.
Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power.
And if you know how a system works, you're in a better position. Yeah, you're in a better position. And essentially that's actually pretty similar to how I felt when I first one of the first books that really opened my eyes was that the Hiram Key. And I can't remember who wrote it right now, but it was basically a book on Freemasonry, the origins of Freemasonry. But it wasn't the Masonic part of it that got me. There was a whole chapter devoted to making a comparison between Jesus of Nazarene and saying that it was really Jesus the Nazarene, and which is a sect of Jews. Nazareth being a town and Nazarene being a member of that town, but Nazarene being a member of that sect. Now, John in the Old Testament, not John, Samson in the Old Testament was a Nazarene. And then John the Baptist is thought to have been in that same sect, the Nazarenes. Anyway, so it goes on.
Supposed to be in a Essene, John the Baptist.
That's another story.
Yeah.
That's another. See, that's what I'm talking about. There's multiple stories here. So, but anyway, so this one goes on, and it has this verse. Anyway, it builds up to this. There's Matthew 27. I might be wrong. 27:13, 27 something or other. And it says that there was another man that was going to be crucified the same day as Jesus, and his name was Barabbas. Yeah. And they asked the crowd, "Who do you want to free, Jesus or Barabbas?" Okay, so that's the version we have right now. But if you step back a little bit in revisions of Bibles, you have the original name of Barabbas. Barabbas, his full name is Jesus Barabbas. I didn't know this. This book was pointing this out, some of these strange discrepancies. It's like, okay, so you had Jesus Barabbas and Jesus King of the Jews, which is the way the original scripture. Who would you rather free, Jesus Barabbas or Jesus King of the Jews? And they say Jesus Barabbas. Origen, the guy, German dude who edited the Bible, thought that was confusing. He took the name Jesus out, so is Barabbas. He's right, that is confusing. It's even more confusing when you know what the word Barabbas means. Bar-Abbas. Bar, son. Abba, father. Jesus, son of the Father, side by side with Jesus, King of the Jews. And they said, "Who do you want to release?" And the crowd said, "Jesus, son of the Father." And that's who they released. And my mind was fucking blown. My mind was fucking blown. Yeah. Because that was the first time I was like, what? That's pretty fucking significant. Hold on. I need to study this. And I went down the fucking rabbit hole of fucking going as far back as I could, looking at the earliest English translations from direct Greek for this scripture. You know, this ridiculous things. I'm
And
like, is that what it
what
really
conclusion
says?
did you come to after that rabbit hole? What was the end of that rabbit hole for you?
Can't be known.
That's a lot of it. That's a lot of it, especially when you go through the weeds of religion and trying to bring it to reality. Can't be known. It's really a faith-based thing. It's really a faith-based thing.
What they were trying to say in that book, their point was that there was two Jesuses. There was Jesus, who was the rebel, and they called him King of the Jews, and he was leading a rebellion against the Roman occupation. And there was also Jesus, that was a priest, that was a Nazarene, and he was called Jesus, Son of the Father, because he was walking around preaching. And it was just one of these. The theory is that there was either really two people, or it was a literary device to split the good and the bad of Jesus into two separate people, so that they could crucify the rebellious person, because this had to be a Roman religion, remember? So they couldn't have a Jesus that was persecuting Romans or advocating for killing Romans. So they crucified that Jesus, and then Jesus, all the good stuff, was the one that they let go. You know. Anyway.
No, you could go down. The rabbit holes you could go down are incredible, and there's just so much we don't know. As human beings, we kind of walk around like we're in the know, or we know what's going on. We don't know a lot about much. And what's that? That's Socrates. That was one of Socrates' philosophies, right? That the first step into enlightenment is admitting that you know nothing.
You don't know anything.
Knowing
I
that
don't remember
you
who
know
it was.
nothing. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Socrates.
Go ahead.
But, like what really got me was 9/11. 9/11 really got me because I was a child when that happened, and then when I grew up, you start hearing more of the facts, and more stuff doesn't line up, and then that takes you to the bushes, that takes you to Skull and Bones, that takes you to Freemasonry and the you've seen the video. I recommend anybody out here watching this, check this out. There's a video, type in Alex Jones Bohemian Grove exposes Bohemian Grove. You've seen that documentary, right? That video. Yeah, where he sneaks into the Bohemian Grove and he shows these people. You know what the Bohemian Grove is, right?
Maybe not.
So
maybe I haven't seen it.
It's in the redwoods. It's in the redwood trees in California, right? It's this whole part of this, like, it's almost like a forest, very dense, forest. And these rich, elite billionaires and politicians and heads of companies, they all go here for like months.
I know what you're
a couple months, and it's like a kickback. They got their own lodges there. There's a lake there, and they all get to kind of fraternize and hang out, which, nothing wrong with that. It only gets weird when at night they have a crazy ceremony where it appears they're having a mock sacrifice. And it looks very Freemasonic. It is a ritual. It's very ritualistic. There's a guy talking and he's chanting these crazy shit, and they're enacting almost like a play. And they bring in it's like the cremation of care. And I encourage you to watch it, because I'm kind of butchering it, but you see that these rich, influential people do get together, and they do weird shit. There's a big statue of an owl named Moloch there. It's it's some weird shit going on. It's very evident. And then you look at check it out. I encourage people to do it if you want to go down that rabbit hole. And then there's just so much. And the whole Epstein thing, that is something I think people should be talking about. That is fucked up. And I'm gonna let you go here soon, Tom. But
I don't mind.
People should be talking about that. People should be figuring out who the fuck he knew. The lady that was with him, Jesleen, or whatever the fuck her name is, she should be in prison because she was an accomplice to all this shit. Trump has pictures with him. All these people.
It's literally one of those things, man. It's either so perfectly done. It was either so perfectly executed that they can't investigate it, or everybody's scared to investigate it.
No, everybody. Dude, there's too many influential people around. It's simple as that. It's very simple.
Never forget, we live under the illusion. We live under the modern illusion that the way it is now with this, we have a false sense of security. We think, oh, this is America. This is how it is. We have houses and we have these things, and we're lucky right now. Life has been pretty fucked up in the past for different generations of people.
Oh yeah.
And we are lucky to have, up until 2016, had a government that was reasonably functioning to provide us with security. But at any given point, that could all be gone, you know? So the idea that there's this mysterious group that killed Epstein, that's doing shit like that where lawlessness really is the way of the land. Yeah.
What about the people that
happened.
worked with him? You know what I mean? The people that he worked with and he was
Well,
associated with and partied with and went to his private island. It's pretty fucking incriminating to me.
Well, one of them probably fucking did it.
Especially when you line it all up. But man,
if you had $1 billion.
I wanted to get to this point. This is the point I kind of wanted to get off. It's a weird. Let me know if I sound too crazy. You'll be my crazy chick, okay? Right? So okay. I've been, like I was bringing up earlier, I've been kind of dipping my toes back into the conspiracy theory world. I've been listening to podcasts, reading articles, following a couple people on Twitter that are vocal about, you know, their views and shit like that. And I've been doing this for a few months, you know, and I started to realize that all these people have the same narrative. Mm-hmm. They all speak the same thing. All their shit is basically the same. And back when I came up, you know, studying and researching this shit, everybody was a little bit different. You had lizard people, you had alien people, you know what I mean? Yeah. You had Illuminati, Freemason people. Everybody thought the top was a little bit different. Now, all the top's the same. And have you heard of the Q? The Q.
QAnon, yeah.
Yeah. So you heard of that, right? Have you looked into that at all?
A little bit, enough to not look into it anymore.
Yeah. Well, basically, all these conspiracy theorists are really into that. They love that. And they all love Trump. That's what I put these things together. All these conspiracy theorists love Trump, and they think he's the guy to save America. And then I think last week, I finally put 2 and 2 together. And now I have a conspiracy theory about the conspiracy theories. All right.
Okay.
All right, man? So here's what I think. And I think it's a pretty smart move. I think that Trump and his administration, because you got to remember, he was tight with Alex Jones when he was running for president 4 years ago or whatever. Alex Jones is on his side. And I thought that was weird, right? I think Trump and his administration, he has people that know how to use the internet and that created Q, and they leak information and they bait you with all that perversion shit, which I think is true, all that pedophile shit and all that. I think they leaked it, but they twist it just like the media always twist it. And they say, look at Bill Clinton, look at Hillary Clinton, who's actually on trial right now. And nobody's talking about that. I think there should be more discussion about that. But look at Bill Clinton, look at Hillary Clinton, look at all the Democrats, look at all these, you know, these are the bad guys. The Democrats, these are the bad guys. And these people eat the shit up. And then these people eat the shit up and like, look, Trump's pointing out the perverts, he's pointing out the bad guys, you know, and he's the one doing this. And I'm like, that's fucking bullshit, because Trump was involved and there's Republicans involved and all that same shit. I think that he's using that Q and this whole conspiracy theory genre to kind of twist people against the left and twist them to the right. And I just kind of finally put it together, and it's pretty smart. It's a pretty smart angle, because mainly conspiracy theorists are like a swing vote. Because if you're a true and a real conspiracy theorist, you don't fuck with the government at all. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're not going to participate unless you feel like there's a reason to, unless you feel like, okay, this guy.
One of the guys, one of your guys in there, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's just, I think it's a lot of bullshit, man, especially what's happening
bullshit.
Now.
They're so full of shit right now, and they know they're full of shit, and that's their job. It's like they literally are playing a fucking mind game with people. And I think when this is all said and done, maybe 20 years from now, there'll be some fucking phenomenal book that'll come out that'll be all about the person behind this, which I think is going to be Stephen Miller. So Stephen Miller, I don't have proof of this, is a very intelligent speech writer, and I think he is equivalent. He's basically like the Stephen, what was his name? Joseph Goebbels of the Hitler-esque time.
Okay.
And so this guy was the in charge of propaganda.
Gotcha.
Stephen Miller in the Trump administration is that guy. And I think he's doing some shit. I don't have proof of this, but I think he's doing some shit like, okay, Trump, here's what you say today. And Trump goes out there and says it all stupid.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It was his idea. He said it. Nobody writes his speeches. He came up with that shit on the fly, you know? And that keeps him from ever being mad, really. And then it backfires in his face, right? Like this whole Nazi symbol thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So you got this stupid fucking Nazi symbol thing that comes out one day, and then the next day you have everybody saying, oh, but it was an Antifa thing, and you guys are overreacting about it. This is the fucking game. They're doing two things at once. First off, they're putting out a fucking racist symbol.
Yeah, they're baiting people.
It's a dog whistle.
Yeah.
So essentially they're putting out an ad with this triangle that every fucking neo-Nazi in the country recognizes. And most of the white supremacists are going to be like, that's for us. That's our dog whistle. We get it. And then the next day they get to have their cake and eat it too, because then they say, oh, we were talking about that, and that's not what it meant at all. And then all their dumb followers that don't want to believe that Trump is really a racist are like, oh, he didn't mean to do it. It was an accident,
Right,
it was just an honest mistake. You evil liberals trying to create fake news about Trump again. And so he gets both. He gets outrage over us bashing Trump, and he gets to make a dog whistle for racists so he can rally his fucking white power base.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see this, whatever he has planned, his little speech or whatever. I think it's going to be
disaster. Be ready for fucking air raids and shit. I'm scared to death
something's
about
going to
this.
go down, I think.
I advise, don't be surprised if it's just fucking a massacre. I am actually, I have a fear that people are just going to fucking open fire and it's going to be a disaster. I hope to God that is not true, but that seems just about the way things are going.
Yeah,
that you're going to get this explosive situation, and people are going to fucking
it does
show
seem
up.
possible, and the way they're handling it, it's just the way they're handling it is not very professional. But I know you got to get out of here, man. I got one more idea I want to toss around with you real quick.
Mm-hmm.
We are losing our privacy and our internet freedom, and all our data is gone. That's being sold by companies at all the time. This data that we're giving Zoom right now is probably getting sold.
Could be.
No, it probably is. And I think they just passed a bill or something that the government's allowed to have even more access to all your private shit. What do you think about this, you want to call it data gate, where we have no more privacy anymore? No privacy.
I have conflicting views on this one, because part of me says bring it on.
Bring on the what?
Bring on your nosiness. Fucking get up in my business. Come and see me naked. Here I am. Here's everything you need to know. Here you go. Fuck you. What are you gonna do? And then once everybody gets that level of exposure, then who fucking cares anymore? I don't. That's one of my attitudes. That's part of it. Now, that doesn't represent my whole being, because the other part of me is paranoid, because I start thinking I don't like them knowing that level of detail. And I feel like, oh God, I don't want to sound like an asshole, but I read a lot about algorithms and some of the futuristic data mining technologies out there. There's some stuff that most people don't ever realize is in existence, but it's out there. There's ways to connect data that you never thought of before.
Oh yeah,
and that humans never thought of before. There's an algorithm called Mine, and you can take large data sets. I'm talking huge data sets of, like, let's say you took the stats of all the baseball players from the entire major league for 10 years. And I'm talking every stat that they have. And you know how baseball has ridiculous stats.
Right.
All that stuff, things like how long they've been married, how many kids they have, whatever, storming that day or whatever, and feed it into this fucking program. And Mine will look at it and feed you back out a correlation coefficient. And that will be a number that represents how strongly sets two different pieces of data relate to each other.
Makes sense.
Basically,
I get it.
What this does is it gives insights that humans weren't capable of making between seemingly unrelated pieces of data. So you could say that, oh wow, we didn't know it, but pitchers that get laid on the Friday before they play on Mondays always do, better in the seventh inning.
Yeah.
This stupid shit, this really obscure crap like that. And that's just a simple one.
I'm sure Vegas is using that, and I'm sure I'm sure that these artificial intelligent robots that they're trying to create, or computers that they're creating, they're using this type of shit too. And to see
they know
that
things.
evolve and to see how smart these things are going to be, it's mind blowing.
It's very scary because they will know things about you that no one knew they would know, and they'll be like, "Oh,
it's dangerous, man. I think it's dangerous, and I think
it is dangerous.
It's a human right that we need to have our privacy, man. I think we got to go back to having privacy.
Now,
the government can just get you at any time they want. They could spy on you. They could create this whole narrative and spin your narrative, whatever way they want.
To me, the way that you approach this with people isn't that the government can do it; it's that the next government can do it. Because you tell this to whoever's, you tell this to the people that are in.
I'm pretty sure, dude. Yeah. Right now, I'm pretty sure I think in 50 years, 20 years, we're gonna look back at 2020 and say that this has been a techno war. You know, like the Cold War. The Cold War, there was just intelligence and spies and shit. This is a techno war. I don't want to get too deep into it on this podcast, unless you really want to go down that avenue. But I think there's a lot of techno spying going on, a lot of techno viral warfare going on, and we'll just leave it at that. I got one more question for you, man. I like to hit my guests with this because this is one that kind of boggles my mind. You're familiar with Elon Musk and the his whole space program and the Teslas, and are you familiar with the Neuralink program?
Neuralink.
Yeah.
I haven't heard it called that, but I know what you're talking about. I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about.
The chip that gets implanted in your head, and they put wires in different spots in your brain, and it wakes up dead brain cells.
Oh, I didn't know about that. No, I thought you were talking about the bio output one, where it has a bio output and you can sync it up to computer devices.
Well, I think it's the same thing. I think they kind of work together. Because I know they're definitely trying to make people that can't walk, and re-stimulate the brain cells, and also Bluetooth capabilities as well to interact with things.
That's kind of cool.
Where do you think that's going? And would you be down to get one if it makes you a smarter, better person that can connect and interface with the augmented reality that's going to be around by the time this thing really gets going? Are you going to be down to get chipped up?
Oh yeah, of course. I would. Nice. I would do it in a second. After they figure out the technology and make sure it's not going to totally screw me up, I would be happy to do it.
So you're not paranoid at all about.
I'm paranoid, but it'd be worth it. I'm paranoid.
Yeah, it would be pretty seductive. It'd be like the tree of knowledge, the apple and the tree of knowledge. Like,
it would.
If you bite this shit, it's never gonna be the same.
You're telling me I can fucking type on a keyboard without using my fingers? I'm in. Or if I can turn off different lights in my house just with my thoughts, yes.
What about when somebody hacks that motherfucker though?
Well, that's not my fault then.
That's your life and your brain and your body that they're hacking. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but as long as they knock me out, they got to install some sort of protocol that makes me go unconscious during those hack times.
And you'd be fine with it.
So then I'm like, I didn't know what I did. Not responsible. If I end up with like the clap or something, then I'm gonna be mad.
Oh shit! Oh, you're a trip, Tom. You're a trip, man.
No. Well,
I appreciate you. I appreciate you joining the podcast, man. I know you got a family. I know you got projects you're working on. I appreciate taking
it's my pleasure
time out here to kick it with me and chop it up with me.
Absolutely, I enjoyed it quite a bit. And as soon as I get done here, I'm gonna go right back to working on music. So
hell yeah, dude.
Or I might drink beer and watch
Hang
TV.
Out. Right on. By the way, Tom has an awesome band. He's a member of this awesome band called Dolewhite, which is a play off of Dolomite, the old comedian, the blaxploitation filmmaker and comedian. And he has a great band, and they play 90s golden era hip hop. And I'll tell you this one thing, right? So I go see Tom play right when I start working with him, a month after that maybe. And I'm expecting I've seen friends and associates play shows before. Sometimes they're packed, sometimes there's 5 people there. So I never know what to expect. So I'm walking in here with my girlfriend. I'm like, let's just see what it's all about. Let's have fun no matter what. We go in here, this place is packed and it's jamming. And there's so many people in here. My mind was blown. Here in St. Joe, there's so many people. And what really struck me the most is that you guys found your target audience and you got them. You got them, man. There was a target audience. You could tell it was late 20s to 30s to 40s, like right there. It was like that was the audience, and it makes sense because that music was played in their they grew up listening to that, so it brings them back to their golden, like their high school days and their college days, and it's really
that's
fun.
what it's all about.
It's really fun to watch you guys play. They have live instruments, they rock gold chains. It's a little bit tongue in cheek. It's fun. They play good music. They play well. They sound good. So you definitely, I know shit's probably slowed down a little bit with all the COVID and shit going around.
A little bit, yeah.
But once everything gets back cracking, man, you got to check these guys out. They're a lot of fun to watch.
Well,
You got
appreciate
anything?
the plug, man.
No problem. You got anything you want to get off before we shut this thing down? Anything you want to tell the people?
Man, I wish I had something thrilling to say, but I do not. Just thanks for your time, man.
Right on, brother.
That's my salesperson. Thanks for your time. You guys have a great day.
Right on, brother. I really appreciate it, man. You take it easy.
Yeah,
all
no
right,
problem. Talk to you later. Bye.
Take it easy, man.